I think they do enough up
Yeah.
front. They do enough to, like, I mean, not actually enough, but, like, that the, like, 70-80% of stuff they're doing just, that the government's doing just for their own benefit kind of goes unnoticed by some people unless you're, like, actually interested in and digging and to find out what, if they're following through on promises they've made and stuff like that. Because they're failing so many people, but there is a significant amount of social or public funding and, like, yeah, I think Canada, there's, like, there's enough of a culture of community care, and it's growing through the pandemic and all the, like, social revolutions that have started to happen since the pandemic lockdown. So it's definitely better, for sure. I mean, yeah, when you compare it to Nepal, it's like, oh yeah, we're doing awesome.
or most places, actually.
Yeah.
Like, it was very humbling I was, like, in a fellowship at a different university, foreign university, where, like, everyone was from all around the world, 20 of us. And, like, I just felt like I couldn't even say anything because some of the things that people are dealing with around the world, like the degree of government corruption where, like, you literally can't do anything.
Wow.
And, like what's going on in Kashmir with India, and it's just, like, full on helpless. Like, you can't
It's
do
very
anything.
political.
Very political and very unjust. And we are dealing with injustices here, and it's very sad in some areas, like, how big of the disparity is, but relative to other countries where it's, like, literally unsafe, the scale is really different. Like, relative to, like, within Canada, we live here, this is our community, we're gonna care about the things that are happening here, and so Suna and I are both really tuned into what's going on in our Indigenous communities, because that's our communities, and so there's a lot of injustice going on.
What sort of improvements are needed to help improve the relationship between the government and the Indigenous population in Canada?
Well, right now the government of Canada is, like, they see themselves as being on top and in charge of everything.
Right.
Whereas obviously Indigenous people have been here for, like, thousands and thousands and thousands of years before. And so really there needs to be more of a equal recognition. And for communities that want to, for Indigenous communities that want to, maybe not all of them do, but the ones that want to have their own independence to make all the decisions that they want to make, and that not having to go through the government.
And along with that, having, like, the value of the land, having enough land for the community, and also having, like, the money that they deserve for that land, because all the land was bought so cheaply with the treaties and stuff.
Right.
And so, because one thing that the government is doing, which doesn't work, is they're like, oh, okay, you want your independence and sovereignty, sure, there you go. And so then the community is left to figure everything out, which, you know, like water, like hydro, electricity, like all the stuff that really the government provides for the rest of the country. And so, like, that's one thing, is they're kind of, like, being like, okay, we'll give you your independence, but they don't actually share resources that everyone else in the country has, too. So it's a balance of, like, land back and cash back, which is them actually having reparations through the money that they deserve to have for what the value of their land is.
Wait, I thought they would provide the resources, like the technological piece and the engineering and stuff, like where you can actually build infrastructures around.
There's really weird rules around, like, the way that resources are distributed. Like, for example, I don't know if this is everywhere, but like, you'll notice this in, like, reserves that are within city limits, is that the municipality will not pick up garbage on the reserve because they're supposed to do it themselves.
Really?
And so, like, you'll see a big difference in, like, just even, like, city, what is that?
Roads? Oh, services?
Services.
Okay.
Services. When it's, like, because the rules are different. Like, the reserves are under the jurisdiction of the federal government, whereas the city is the municipal government.
Right.
And so, like, the funding and the allocation of resources is very different. And, like, there's like a really big case that came out around this. It was around like child welfare and the amount of money being put into that system. They found that Cindy Blackstock, who's like a really huge advocate and like at the front of this, she like took the government to court for like more than a decade, just telling them like, you haven't been funding this system fairly, and it's led to so many negative outcomes.
Yeah, disparity.
Yeah,
for
and
generations.
Totally, and impacting, generations.
Yeah.
And then she ultimately won this case that I'm not explaining very well, but that's just like the bare outline is basically saying the government didn't fund this system properly. Like the amount of dollars by comparison, like on a reserve versus anyone outside of a reserve is like, it's a big difference. I don't know the exact number. Yeah, I don't know the exact number, so I don't want to say it.
Yeah.
But she ultimately won and found that they had severely underfunded it, and that it's led to so many difficulties within Indigenous communities.
For kids who need extra healthcare support. The Jordan's principle. That's what you're talking about?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it was about child welfare.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But she was a part of Jordan's principle coming into effect. Yeah.
If I were to give a birth to my child in city of Vancouver, which is a municipal city, I would get child welfare, I'll get education, I'll get roads and everything, a good proper environment for my child to grow and rear. But if I were an Indigenous person and I was on a reserve land, would I not get all those resources?
It would be a different, I want to say level, I don't know what the word is. The conditions, it's not every single reserve because I haven't been to every single one, but the amount of funding and the amount of funding that is being requested now that hasn't been given is like so big. They don't have enough funding to meet all the needs of, for example, updating a school that's got mold or is falling apart, needs to be updated. They don't have enough money to update the amount of things that need to be updated on reserves right now. And then part of the history, it has been that it is more difficult for governments, band councils, and the people that govern these reserve communities, it's more difficult for them to borrow money from banks themselves because like, oh, we don't have enough money from the government, let's borrow some money just like anyone else in Canada.
Uh-huh.
Well, there's barriers to that too.
Mm-hmm. Even access to banking systems.
Access to loans. And so in recent years, there's been some really amazing Indigenous leaders that are changing or putting forward some legislation so it's easier to borrow money as a band council.
Mm-hmm.
But the history up until now has been that it's very difficult and they don't get approved. So they're not getting enough money, the government's only allocating a certain amount, and they're not allowed to borrow money themselves, so the infrastructure never gets updated.
That leaves you nowhere.
Yeah.
It's just like static.
Yeah, so like how do you
like, what the hell?
So that's one of the
That's
really,
so
really
fair.
weird things about, I mean, weird's not the word. Like I would probably use some other words.
Just.
And also, they have a house, but they cannot own it. They cannot sell, right? Jamuna?
On Indigenous lands?
Yeah.
Well, the same thing you were talking about, like your story, Emma, about how the Brahmins would lend them 100 but add an extra 0 and be like, no, you're not done paying it back. The same thing is happening here in Indigenous communities, where the government will be like, our uncle was telling us about this, he went to court about it. Like, they'll be like, okay, we have 100 houses, it's rent to own, so you just slowly pay the mortgage off over 12 years or something. But then, because so many people were illiterate back in that day, some of the elders are still paying off $100 every month. So they've paid what should have been, I think, $30,000 is turning into multiple $100,000 dollars for their houses, and they still don't technically own it. So that's just one example in Saskatchewan, northern Saskatchewan.
Yeah. Do you mind telling us more about your Saskatchewan trip? What was the purpose? Like, what did you do?
Well, I'm actually not talking about that project yet.
Oh, okay. It's a hidden one. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you mind talking about other projects that you've done in the past?
Yeah, well, I've just finished a film, which is my first film, called Healing Nation, and it's about the intergenerational impact of taking Indigenous kids away from their families. And it's to bring attention, or just to provide a platform for more of those stories to be told. But also, that's not the sole focus. The focus is to, have that opportunity to share those stories, but also these people that I've been able to speak with have been on their own healing journeys, and so they're talking about how they've been able to survive and thrive and found ways to heal through such difficult circumstances. And their circumstances, it's an environment created by the government of Canada. And so that's the container of the film, is like talking about how these policies have made it legal to take Indigenous kids away from their families throughout the generations, and it's always been legal. Mm-hmm. So clearly I'm pretty passionate about it, and Suna is too, in her own ways, like just about the injustices and things of Canada around Indigenous communities. I think if we were in Nepal, we'd probably be the Tamang people that would be like, this isn't right.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking in my head. In so many ways, Tamangs and the history of how Tamangs were treated was very much similar to how Indigenous people were treated in Canada.
I remember like going to the village one time when I was there, and it was all like, we're stuck in the mud in our cars and stuff trying to go up the mountain, and like there's these other Tamang guys who are like trying to dig the car out and stuff, and I was like, whoa, it just like we could have been on a res here, like just like and also like the physicalities, like the skin color, some of the like,
shape
facial
of our
structures,
eyes, and
totally, it's so
chins.
I see a lot of like shared, just I don't know.
Yeah. Speaking of which, like, do you find any similarities? What are some of the similarities and differences you've found? Because you both are like Tamang as well as Dani.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing, like I remember when I was in astrology school, my teacher is part Tibetan, and he was talking about how you can actually see similarities in like some Navajo and like Tibetan, and like Tamang people are migrated from Tibet, so I think there are some shared cultural like traditions, and he said you can hear the similarities in the songs, in like the instruments that are used, and like the rhythms or like tunes, they're just on different octaves, and like the regalia and like some of the cultural clothing have like very similar colors, and they both have that like triangle-ish pattern. And my art, when I was going to Emily Carr, like one of my projects, it started off as like, okay, these are the different cultures I come from, and just like drawing different photos that I had to like just like process and think about my different lineages, but then it actually just showed me how similar they are, just with like how the ceremonies happen, and like the way that like incense is used and stuff. And so I see like cultural and values based similarities for sure. I see a lot of similarities, like when I think about myself as quite Indigenous, because like on my dad's side it's just a little bit like from his mom and grandma, but then like on my mom's side I feel like that we have a lot of Indigenous blood, and I just like I see it as different, like different clans, but also they kind of mean the same thing to me, and they're just from different places in the world. And at some point, thousands and thousands of years ago, I wouldn't be surprised if there was cultural exchange or like meeting
Yeah.
of the two clans.
Or they could have been from the same lineage. You
Totally.
never know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like thinking about that.
Yeah, now that I think about it, they sukul, what is that called? A dry mat. Like,
Mhm.
indigenous people also have a culture of like sitting on dry mats, and so does
Mhm.
Tamang people.
And the weaving.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the weaving, the
totally.
way they live their life on a
Totally.
day-to-day basis.
The lifestyle,
Yeah.
totally.
And both are, I don't know, does indigenous culture have like women taking charge?
Sometimes
It's all
there's
different.
matriarchal.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it is different per nation.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So women are taking care of children and making sure, food on the table, but men are going hunting and bringing, gathering, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I learned too in First Nation.
Yeah.
Our culture, Tamang women are very strong.
Yeah.
They take care of everything, children, farm, and husband go to work. They just bring those salary, give it to women to, make sure enough for end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And they make decision on anything they have to do. So that I am very proud of Tamil
Which is
people.
polar opposite of what the society is
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, the patriarchal
Yeah.
thing going on.
So husband would go to work and they bring money and give it to women.
Mm-hmm.
And women make sure that's what need to be spent on and what need for the home or what animal need to buy. So they make a decision. My first experience coming to Canada, and we went to powwow in Mission, just not too far. And they were playing drums, and that really connected me with Tamang. Our they're different
drums.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the drum is a different, made, but the rhythm really took me to home.
Like Dompu.
Like a dampu, yeah,
Yeah.
and they have those rhythm, going. I just like, and they're singing. I didn't understand, but I enjoyed it. And I like those dancing. Tamang dance a little bit different from other, and they're dancing with their feet. And this gentleman asked me to dance, and I was shy, Nepali lady. Then he went dancing, and I said, no, I didn't dance, but zigging, like that, and it really brought me. And then they're offering tobacco. Different way, but still, like that's offering that tobacco is for ancestor, and we do is so you light it and then give. Different way. So
Yeah.
that also made similar.
That's true. It's like the protocols. I noticed the protocols are very similar of like how you treat guests, how gift giving, like just how you interact and tend your relationships. That's the kind of thing that I noticed is very similar. And actually I think is similar for lots of BIPOC cultures around the world. And there's even funny things on Instagram, like there was some Nordic...
So many memes.
Yeah, yeah, totally. There's like Scandinavian or Nordic people who for some reason made the news because they were saying how they don't feed other families' kids when they're at their house.
Oh.
And then there's so many memes of like brown people being like, yeah, and all the brown people are like, what? Because like, just even how you treat guests is like a big part of the spiritual, about the cultural and spiritual protocols. Yeah, that's what I like the most about being Indigenous is there's actually like ways that you're just like there's like the some superstitions as well as just like how you treat people. It's so much based on how you treat people and animals and plants, and like everything's a relationship that needs to be tended. And that's the biggest thing that Western culture just like doesn't seem to understand or completely invalidates.
Yeah. they ignore it, like
Totally.
blatantly,
Yeah, I know.
like proudly.
Yeah.
Well, it's individualistic here.
Oh, very.
It's very about
I
the
was so
person
sad
getting
reading.
ahead.
Was that I have a tea to talk about with that. The collectivist versus individualistic perspective. It's mind-boggling to me just to how people can be so individualistic and self-centered about things that they want here. It's sad.
It's actually one of the ways that it can feel a little isolating here. And I think it's gotten better over the last few years with social media and like communities found online. But like to have, I've been in friends' situations where I don't think people really understood what it means to really have to show up for your family or to want to even, and like it just is hard to relate. But also like there's like, I think there's a way of families, at least Nepali families, maybe, I don't know if I can even generalize to Nepali
Or
families.
BIPOC.
Well, just like of when you have like a parent who's from a different country coming here, there's more responsibility around helping. Whereas if you're like, if I was in Nepal and Amma was in Nepal, she wouldn't be leaning on me to, or us, to help navigate the systems over here.
Right.
But because
Yeah.
you know, it's just like some systems don't even make sense, and you kind of just have to really be familiar with it on a weirdly, I don't know.
You just have to accept it without knowing it.
Yeah, there's like a way of like being familiar, being able to navigate the systems here is a really big part of just being able to function.
Yeah.
And if English is your second language, or if you're not great at navigating computer systems and things like that, it's just like a different experience that I think a lot of like first generation kids of immigrant parents probably can relate to. It's just like that's part of our responsibility is making sure our parents are okay.
You were their
And like little things that like families who are from here, they're just never gonna know what it's like to help their mom or dad.
You're
try
their
and
passport
figure out.
finders. You're their Google Maps.
Yeah.
Well, now that Emma's figured out how to do voice to text, it's actually I feel like life got a lot easier.
Oh my god.
Still, when I say sorry, it's a sorry.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Siri hasn't found the name Tori yet.
No. Say it is sorry. And then I'm not sorry. Say sorry. Sorry. Sorry, sorry, sorry.
Look, even these systems are made out of all English, so there's another barrier there. Yeah.
Well, one thing I would say just about like growing up in Canada, as a brown person of mixed race brown person.
Every
It's
continent,
kind of hard to
not
fill out
quite.
like what's your ethnic background. Like, I have a lot of boxes to check off. But yeah, so like I would say that growing up, it's very like I said, like the reflective time is like in your 20s and 30s. Like I'm 33. So I understand it a lot more now, but like when I was young, I was in places that were mostly saturated with white people just because of where we were living. And so as a young person, it was ingrained in me that white was superior. Mm-hmm. And I always, but like in like really subtle ways, like I knew that if I was with my dad, who is white, I would get treated differently than if I was with my mom and like 3 brown kids. And like it wasn't like something ever talked about, but I was just like, I knew the experience was going to be different, so I knew life would be easier if I was more like my dad.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I remember being 6 years old and having a birthday party with all my white friends and everything, and I remember telling my dad, when I grow up, I want to be white.
He must have been so disappointed.
Well, our dad's like so like loves color and just
And
like,
hates that he's white.
Yeah.
It's probably the worst.
he's very, but okay, so like the extension of that story is that I had a birthday party where I got a present was like a white Barbie. And like when I was 6 years old, there was only white Barbies.
Yeah.
And so we never actually got any Barbies. Our dad never gave us any. But I got one finally. I was like, yes, I have one. And it was like a gymnastics Barbie. I remember like the thrill I had. I was so excited about this because I was like, my dad would never get me one of these. I have one. And I was like doing so many. I remember playing with it. Like I don't have a lot of memories from being a kid, but I remember this Barbie. And I probably was like showing everyone too. And then within a day or two, that Barbie was gone.
Where did it go?
Oh, maybe Dad put it
I'll never know, but I have my suspicions because shortly after it was replaced by a couple anatomically correct brown dolls. I was like, oh, where'd these dolls come from? Wow, they look so human.
Oh, that's a drama.
Was it?
No, I think it was Bua. Well, I just remember losing a white Barbie and getting these dolls.
And it has a dukur and now.
Yeah.
You could like feed them and then they would pee you too.
Did you just say dukur?
Yeah, she did. I did. I said anatomically